Man,
Got a bad piece.
got it. It's back there. It's doing damage. My tonsils, I lost them. They're gone.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Live Your Mission Show, brought to you by Mission Meats, where our guests share their most actionable advice so that you can live a more mission-centered life. I am your host, Peter Alwood, and today we're joined by my good friend, Tyler Merrick from Project 7, candy, gum, gummy bears, you name it. But first, let's hear what's happening over at Mission Meats headquarters. All right, guys, super excited. Something we've been working on for a long time. Finally hit the shelves, I don't know, a couple days ago. And that is the new Mission Meats Beef and Veggie Strip. Check it out. It's hard to see in the camera. So a couple of things that are really, really fun about this. One is it's a new format for us. So it's not a stick. It's not a bar. It's an in-between. There's no casing. It's kind of like a bar, but it's really thin. You see that? Let's see. Hold on. You see that? Yeah. If you're watching, not listening, not just listening. There it is. So super delicious, just like mouthfeel is what we call it here in the industry. But here's the other thing about it. Not only is it a new format, but 40% veggies in this bad boy. So we've got our typical delicious grass-fed beef, but then second ingredient, 40% of this thing are some fajita vegetables, onion, green, red, and yellow peppers that are organic, baby. So try this out. It's smoky. It's freaking awesome. And my kids just love it, man. So it's just good for the whole family. So give it a check out on the website, on wherever you like to shop, Amazon, Thrive Market, whatever. Actually, it's not on Thrive yet. Anyways, so check it out. Delicious. The Beef and Veggie Strip, brought to you by Mission Meats, baby. Now back to the show. All right. So you're wondering probably, why is Peter chewing gum while recording the intro of the show? And that's because Tyler's business is Project 7, and one of the delicious products they put out is a whole gum line with flavors that until they put them out, you'd never seen before. So like this one I'm holding up here, birthday cake. I got a fairy tale fruit. This one's awesome. So good. Rainbow ice. They got champagne, I think. Mimosa, something like that. Champagne, something like that. I got a whole bunch of these, but thanks to Tyler. But just an absolute delicious product. So today, I bring you Project 7 founder Tyler Merrick. We got to record this one at the international headquarters here in San Clemente, California. And like I said, his product's delicious. They've got gum, they got gummy bears, they got all kinds of really awesome stuff, and got to try some of their R&D product that they're going to put out soon. And I won't let the cat out of the bag, Tyler, but it is it's awesome. It's really delicious. And so on the show, he talks about why it's called Project 7. There's 7 missions associated with that. Talks about what those are, how picking 7 was kind of a mistake because there's so stinking many. So he talks about that. And how he's using candy, right, some sweets to fund those humanitarian needs that he wants to get behind. And they're doing just incredible stuff. He shares some numbers and stats on the show. Also shares big lessons behind having a mission-driven business. And so clearly I was excited to hear kind of his take on some things because we are also a mission-driven business, as you know. He shares the mistakes, how the business is iterated many, many, many times, and what it means for him to be moving into kind of what he calls the third chapter of the business. Lots of great wisdom here, even if you're not trying to start a mission-driven business, just behind some of the thought processes and how his business has evolved over time and how he's been okay being wrong and learning from that and then moving on from it. So without any further ado, I bring to you my incredibly interesting, which I think interesting, conversation with Tyler Merrick. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, sir.
Thanks for having me, man. We're in Project 7 headquarters.
Global world.
Global headquarters. Global operation. It's a great place, man.
Thank you.
So we'll jump right in. When someone asks you what your mission is, what do you say?
Oh man, I always struggle with this. I'd rather be honest with that answer than just the quick elevator pitch. But originally it was to build this business model that sustainably gave back to these philanthropic areas of need that my wife and I were passionate about, and using consumption of everyday goods to do that. That since has been honed down and through just the experience of doing it in life, and now we focus on candy and making really special craft recipes across candy and chewing gum, and the brand still gives back to the 7 areas of need, but it's first and foremost about making a really great product that's unique in the marketplace. And then we happen to have that mission as far as we don't want to just make product for the sake of making product, but we want to have that foundation of this is more than just making money. Yeah.
Why was that important to you?
It was for me, it was central to my faith. So, which I never want to weird people out about that, but I think it's like, for whatever reason, that's one of those ones that it's like, as soon as people bring that up, it's like the awkward thing, but you're allowed to bring up anything else. If I said to you that, I just love nature and I just felt like it was out of balance, and so I just wanted to restore order. Fine. You're like, that's awesome. As soon as I say, my faith, it's like, whoa, slow down,
you
buddy.
hear the brakes.
Yeah. But I say that because it was important to me for faith in action. And so as a Christian, I definitely, not perfect, but the hope was, all right, there's 2 different kinds of things. A lot of times there's vocational work where people think I work inside of a church or a nonprofit, and then they think that anything outside of that is not sacred. And so it was brought early on in my life that that's not the case, and to inside of your place that you work, whether you're a doctor or a teacher or a social worker, have a business, that's a place where you can make impact and you can live out your faith. So obviously, definitely not perfect in that, but the hope was, how do I do something which I love the marketplace and I love business, but I also want to have something where I feel like I'm adding value and contributing to other things that are helping out my fellow brother as much as I can, in that sense, and always could do more. So that was where it was. That's where it came from.
Got it. I dig it, man. And in what better way to pair what you love to do, right? Which is consumer packaged goods with, backing up. I love what you said, faith in action, right?
Yeah. And it's like, we picked things, we would have like a 3-day podcast if I just kept talking of all the mistakes I made. We picked too many things.
Me too, man. Me too.
We picked too many things. So 7 was way too many. So if you're listening, don't do 7.
What were the 7? Or what are the 7?
Well, that was the thing. So I was like, I was trying to do things that were basic humanitarian needs. And at the time, I wanted to have options so that when retailers wanted to get behind the project originally, I didn't want to come to them with just one lane and then them have this thing of like, well, we're really not passionate about that. We really care about this particular other area.
Yeah.
And so again, it was too many, but 7 allowed to kind of go, are there 2 to 3 here that your company would feel like, all right, that aligns with us and we want to carry those products in our stores because that's something we can get behind. Obviously, there's a lot more than 7, even though 7 was too many.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, even with 7, 9 out of 10 times the conversation would go, those are great. If you thought about adding the arts.
Have you thought about Project 700?
Totally. Have you thought about animal welfare? And so I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it just never is going to end. Right. And so you just would be polite and say, there's so many amazing things. You absolutely should if you want to, care about that as a company, great.
Yeah.
Here's our 7. So what would happen would be they would pick out a couple. And that's a whole other story, because what ended up happening was, and I'll get to what the 7 were, but they would pick out a couple. And so the scale began over a couple of years. The same couple began to get picked because they were safer, I think, and more 100 level is what I would say.
Okay.
And so then you'd see our giving report have this huge chasm between the ones that got selected and the ones that didn't. So the 2 that would get picked over and over again were hunger and save the earth, planting trees back. So hunger, we did meals back into American communities, and then planted trees globally. So those were safe. Things like heal the sick, which we decided to partner with malaria programs in sub-Saharan Africa. That's like way out of touch, out of mind, not only for me as the brand owner, but then even that many more steps for someone who's a buyer in a cubicle. So that one felt a little, I don't want to say dirty, but it felt a little bit like, whoa, that's got hairy legs, kind of thing. That's a harder one to do. And so some of those began to kind of get it wasn't discrimination. It just was, well, these ones look great, and these are safe and we can go with them. So those began to be the lead. And then over time I was like, this is not why I did this. And so what we ended up doing was basically creating a mutual fund.
Okay.
So everything gets equally distributed, to all of the 7. And so they all have different cost structures. So the giving metric on a report looks a little bit different. Like, for instance, it's over $3 to put a student through an anti-bullying program in the U.S., which again, that's like, wow, that's not that much. And it's not. But then you can do a month of clean drinking water for, 10 cents for someone.
Wow.
And so there's that, there's a gap. So obviously if you look on our giving report and you see 1 million or 2 million months of clean drinking water, and then you see 34,000 kids that got anti-bullying programming, it looks like the one's this big, one's really getting a lot and the other one's not. It's totally different cost structures involved. So that's what we did. So we did hunger, clean drinking water, shelter, education, planting trees back in the earth, medicine, and then anti-bullying. And so they were meant to be not left or right issues, but basic ones that most people would go, all right, I could get behind that, kind of thing. Originally, again, pivots and changes. Originally, it wasn't anti-bullying. The kind of parent banner over it was Hope for Peace. And originally it was for children of war. In, Congo and the reality was that it was like, how do you put a dollar amount to trying to rescue and rehab someone in that? And then that's even farther away than malaria. And there were some groups that were doing some awesome advocacy, but as far as like pulling kids out, that just felt a lot like we probably shouldn't try to just say that we fix them with a dollar amount.
Sure.
And so that's why we stopped doing that one and moved it into bullying. And not that we fixed someone with bullying, but we put kids through at least, all that it says is we put kids in U.S. schools through an anti-bullying program, right? So then obviously it's up to the home and teachers, but you provide resources in that sense to hopefully make an impact in those areas.
Sure. That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
Even one of those things is a big, daunting task.
Yeah. And I think, that's the other thing that's a mistake sometimes with this business is like the business model of, is that you fall into other traps of a messiah complex. And so if you have a bad month or a bad year, then you put that on you that you really did a disservice to the nonprofits. And so then there's that pressure. When you do have a good month or a good year and you're able to give, it can start to feel a little bit detached because you're just writing a check. There's all sorts of weird nuances within this that I'd rather be honest about than, people that are considering a business model like this would know going into. They still got to figure it out for themselves, but those are some watch outs.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like spreading yourself too thin is like a universal mistake, right? Whether it's on the mission side of things or just like on product line or channels or anything, right?
Yes.
Because everything's shiny.
Yes. That is, you said it, that is a universal law.
Yeah. It is just like everything's shiny.
It is.
And you can't really, to me, I see it like parenting. It's like you see a young entrepreneur and you're like, dude, or gal, pump the brakes.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand, but let me tell you why. You can't impart that wisdom, really. Like, you really have to feel what it's like to be spread too thin. And my hope is always like, okay, just get that done quick, right? Like, get it over, get it out of your system.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, really, a lot of that's for me because I like shiny objects, man. I mean, I love it.
Me too.
And so, the rest of the team, Nick, if you're watching, they're always like, dude, come on, bro, Peter, stop.
Yeah, same with my team.
Stop, please stop. You're killing us.
Yeah, because there's part of it that's innate to the gifting you've been given that you're like, all right, you need that on a team, right? That says, hey, I'm going to cast vision here. I'm not afraid to try and go take that hill. And you want that. But without some rails, even ourselves, it's tiring.
It's tiring.
Because you eventually spread yourselves too thin.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening, at least for me, is my batting percentages on each one of those shiny objects decreases as the more get added. Mm-hmm. So then the byproduct of that is my confidence level goes down. Mm-hmm. And so then on the stuff that is core, I start to even lose confidence because I've spent too much on those other things.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm with you
the
there.
other thing, right?
I'm totally with you there.
But you nailed it on what you just said about the advice of telling a young entrepreneur. I had people that when I started Project 7, they're like, I don't know if I do this, I would do that. And I'd be like, yeah. I know, but it's going to be different.
Yeah, I'm going to be different.
It's not.
I know everybody else can't spread themselves thin, but I can do it without a problem. And everything's going to be gold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because everybody, like my mentor always says, like, nobody has an ugly baby, right? You ever meet a parent that's like, oh, my baby, so ugly. No. And the business is the same way. Like, yours is beautiful. It's the best looking baby, right?
Totally.
And this is going to work out, even though everybody's telling me it's not, right? I totally get that, man. And so let's talk a little bit about kind of some of the surprises along the way outside of too many missions. Even though, like you said, people warned you. What happened that surprised you, maybe in both a positive and a negative light, that you just never anticipated?
In any business adventure, just like family, there's a lot of times you can categorize them by chapters, and chapters that are still being written. To date for Project 7, I think we're entering our third chapter. Other people on the team might feel like we're on 27. So I say that, a little bit. I get it. But the first chapter of Project 7 was this thing of like, there was a brand that started in the 90s by Paul Newman called Newman's Own. Mm-hmm. And he just started selling salad dressings that he made. And then he was like, wow, people really like my salad dressings. I'm just going to donate all the money to charity. And then it expanded and he got into cookies and dog food and coffee and you name it. And did an amazing job. When I started Project 7, the hope was to be, even though no one was asking for it, but the hope was to be Newman's Own 2.0. And what I mean by that was, as generations begin to, Mr. Newman did more for cause-related brands than most people will ever do, in a month, in their whole lifetime, the impact. But knowing that there was going to be a time that Newmans would be less and less relevant. just because you know, my kids will never, you know, like unless we're watching an old movie, you know, it's just reality. And so the 2.0 was, all right, theirs was just like, hey, you know, here's a similar Oreo cookie, natural ingredients, whatever, and we give back to these camps and charities. I wanted to be like, we're going to put these 7 different, you know, calls to action on the front of the package, and you can get passionate about whatever one you want. So if you want it, if the earth is important to you or shelter is important to you, you can literally know exactly where it's going, turn it over, and see the metric tied to it.
Yeah.
So when we ran it through like focus groups and, you know, all these different people would be like, yes, if I can get just as good a quality product, just as competitively priced, but there's a tangible give back to that, I'll do that all day long. I'd buy that all day long. The reality is that that didn't necessarily happen, you know? And I think that was a hard lesson of learning that about 5 years in, and sales, you know, tanking, and us having to start over and reshape the business. And I'm not saying that that was an absolute truth, that someone could have done it better than us and maybe it would have worked. Mm-hmm. But most brands that have had that kind of an altruistic business model are not here today anymore. So I don't think it's that far off that we were anything different. Mm-hmm. What we found was this. The reminder was the root word in, you know, consumer goods is consumer. Consuming. I am buying something that I want.
Yeah.
If right now, you and I, it's Friday night, and we're going to go have dinner with our families, and pizza night is always Friday night, let's say, right? Mm-hmm. And so everyone's thinking about pizza. But you or I come home and go, hey kids, I want to skip pizza tonight. There's this great Chinese place down the street that if we go eat there, they're going to give some meals back into our local community here. And so it'd be really cool. You know, we're still going to get good food. There'd be a mutiny.
That wouldn't go over well.
It wouldn't, I mean, just because it's like, that's great, but like, I want pizza.
Yeah.
And so what we found is that no matter, you know, of saying like, if you'll buy this product and it'll do this, there was still this thing that was like, well, is it the best product? Is it the flavor I want? Is it the brand that I believe in? All these things. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that the purchases we got kind of were called, we named them and other people named them a pity purchase.
Sure. Charity.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm going to absolve my guilt here, and I'm going to at least do it once. Mm-hmm. I'm going to buy that. But then after I do that, I'm probably going to go back to regular scheduled programming. Yeah,
and you can't build a CPG brand on that.
No.
Not going to happen.
No. So that was a hard reality.
You know? I think it's interesting is that I remember when we were starting Mission Meats, there's quite a few reasons why we're friends. Because a lot of similarities, but it's like when we were starting Mission Meats, I remember talking to several people and they're like, dude, listen, Mission's cute. It's cool. It better damn sure not be like the headliner. The product's got to be amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so I remember talking to Nick and we were talking early on, and what kept coming back is like, we need to win everywhere. If you like charity's cool, we win.
Totally.
If you like a super clean meat snack, we win.
Totally.
If you want it to taste really good, we got to win.
Yes.
We got to win everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like, not in this one silo. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so like, that's going to be the way that you're going to move forward. Your customer service, you better win. Like, you better win everywhere. Because it's hard enough making a business work when like everything's working right, you know?
Yes.
You get one of these things off, your chances of success are down to almost zero.
Because it's so competitive.
So competitive.
Peter, I mean, it's like,
it's so competitive.
It's never been easier to start a brand today, and it's never been harder to build a brand today. Mm-hmm. The barrier to entry is lower than ever before, but because of that, there's so many, mm-hmm. and there's so much competition in every category. And if you're not firing on all those cylinders,
not going to make it.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. All right, so that was one lesson. Was there a positive thing that surprised you, like something that came up where you're like, I didn't realize this was going to be a thing? Like, and I think specifically, I'm like just thinking about like when somebody asked me about you, I'm like, this is a dude who has introduced flavors that had never been seen before in gum.
Sure.
And as soon as I mention it, they're like, "Oh yeah, I've seen those at the checkouts at XYZ, retailer."
Yeah, that'd be a surprise.
Did you expect to be able to unseat some of the big dogs?
No, not at all. And things that I thought would unseat, didn't. And I don't, or I thought that might wow, when the market sees this, they're going to really like it, and then they didn't. That would be. I would say my love-hate relationship with chewing gum would be a surprise because, and that's always I think we make amazing gum. I love gum.
It is amazing.
So don't get me wrong. I don't want anyone that sees it that's like, oh, Tyler's not living out his brand and he's, whatever. Mm-hmm. I just mean, I'm just really honest. And I don't know. There's a couple people that maybe I've met in my time in consumer packaged products goods that are always on brand and yes, I make the best nut butter ever and it's amazing. But most people, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a realist about your business and there's times you love your products and there's times you hate your products.
I just told a friend the other day, I said that, the occupational hazard that I didn't realize was going to be a real thing was that I can barely eat meat sticks anymore.
Yeah. And
the thing is, it was so sad for me because I love meat snacks. I've always have. I asked my parents when I was a kid, that was my favorite thing. If I want to have a treat, give me some jerky, give me some meat sticks. I love it. Right? I grew up in the grocery store, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but I'm drowning in them. I like samples coming out of my ears. I can't freaking eat them all.
Totally understand.
And so same thing with gum. You're like, I don't even want to see a pack of gum for 2 weeks. Just get it out of my life for a while.
My kids sometimes will be, we're traveling or something and we're in the airport or whatever. And we don't have any gum on us. Believe it or not, I don't carry our gum all the time. And so, they'll buy a pack of gum or someone gives them a pack of gum and it's not ours. And be like, Daddy, is it okay? And I'll be like, yes. We are not, that group.
Yeah.
But gum would be one because, and I think that's an important thing to bring up and talk about for a second is because, the reality is that I had a mentor a long time ago that'd be like, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? And that sounds really ugly, compared to how I opened up what I told you we're about. Mm-hmm. So subtract, the money part of it. Mm-hmm. And just say, do you want to be right or do you want this to work? Because obviously I'm not doing this for the money. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is I told you about chapter 1 and I had this ambition and I had full business plans presented to, if we sold this many boxes of cereal, across this, we could close the gap in hunger in the US. If we did this across toilet paper and paper towels, we could eat sustainable, all of the forest products we need in the US. I had full things of we can solve, you can't solve mental health, serious diseases with just writing a check donation. Those are things that are going to have to be figured out in a lab over time and, whatever. But there was a lot of these things that I was if we apply a business model and use consumption to our benefit, we can actually close the gap. So I was this works, eureka. And so for that not to happen in the marketplace was, really, I was down about that. But in the middle of all of that was this little random product category of gum that was kind of working. And so I had to be all right, do I want to be right here? Or do I want to try and make something work and reshape this a little bit and rebuild and lay down, some of my pride of how I envisioned it working. And I think that's important. And so I found a way to fall in love with gum. Yeah. And I found a way to paint on that canvas. And I found a way to survive doing gum. And I think that's an important thing for people to think about is that's adapting in the marketplace and maybe going, all right, It's maybe not exactly how I envisioned, but I do see a path here. I can make it work. It doesn't mean I'm giving up completely on that, but I can kind of, keep momentum going in this direction. So gum is one of those. And it, at different times it's been truly our life preserve, to keep going.
That's amazing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that was completely accidental.
Yeah.
I mean, I got into gum because I was pitching something else. The buyer was like, I'm not interested in that, but I like your business model. And then I was like, I thought about gum one time and I was like, what if I make you gum? And I just wanted to keep the conversation going. And it was like, I'll look at your gum. And so then
that was it.
That was it. And it was like, all right, I'll go and try and figure out how to make gum. So that's why I say this love-hate relationship. I always joke like, I should have picked something else. I should have done something else. Because the other thing though is the negative is that, the gum category is, it's a challenge category.
Mm-hmm. How come?
It's not that dissimilar to the, Paul Newman, may rest in peace, analogy of the brand maybe as next generation comes up, loses some relevance. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, and this is not my money, this is the money that the big guys have spent, and then it's been communicated back into the industry, is that, chewing gum's origin, and Mr. Wrigley making it the biggest and starting it, a lot of it was birthed out of boredom. So when you and I were sitting at the waiting room at the doctor's office or waiting for a train, or at a school play, there was no phone to distract yourself. It was, let me pull out a pack of juicy fruit, have a stick, share a stick with you. And it was something that passed the time. Absolutely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that was the real growth side of it. And then as time went on and breath, and that kind of a thing. But as we've seen the rise of smart devices,
there's no more boredom.
There's not the boredom of that. And then this one there's three things. So there's that bucket number one. Bucket number two is flirting and dating and pursuing someone. Used to mean, like when I grew up, I always wanted to have, when I was trying to impress my wife or at least get her to date me, I wanted to have fresh breath.
Sure.
And so gum or mints were always something that I had in the car. With
mouth spray.
Totally. And back to the device, because so much of that now is living room to living room texting and snaps and whatever. There's not this, so I don't have to have
good breath.
Yeah. And then third is share of pocket, but not share of pocket in the sense of share of dollars, literally the physical share of pocket. So between your smartphone, again, you're seeing that pesky thing come up again. Between smartphone, wallet, keys, I have less and less things on my person, and I don't carry gum like I used to.
Interesting.
Yeah. So those are the three that they've said. I will say, being the challenger and the little David against the Goliath, the big guys missed it in the sense that they got comfortable and they quit innovating and coming out with stuff. Like by now we should have Willy Wonka type experiences where I'm chewing and I'm having roast beef and then I'm chasing with blueberry cobbler,
Yeah.
And what happened was the categories on the periphery did. So meat sticks, meat jerky, that whole category started coming, the last 5 years, just chocolate and dark chocolate, nuts, bars. They all started coming out with such awesome innovation, new ideas. And so this given space up at the front end that was always allocated to chewing gum and mints started to go, wow, this thing's flat. It's declining. There's nothing new. It's the same stuff over and over again. Let's take 6 inches away this year and give it to protein bars. Next year, let's take 6 more inches away and give it to meat snacks. These things that are growing.
Interesting.
So that's the side of it that I think they got stagnant, and that's why it's been. So being a challenger brand, a lot of times, even with a good sales story at a particular retailer like Target or somewhere, taking that and trying to go to, say, a Kroger and say, hey, we're doing X at this particular, national retailer, and trending in, these type of velocity. A lot of times they'll treat it similar to like the soda category, and they'll be like, That's great, but have you seen what's going on with gum? It's not growing. It's declining. We're actually cutting SKUs and we're not adding anything new. And I say the soda example because it'd be like trying to start a soda brand today. They'd be like, look, we got Coke and Pepsi and all of their children. We're not growing. We're growing in other categories, kombucha, sparkling water, pressed juices, you name it. But in that particular one, even if you were lighting it on fire, so that's been part of the challenge of coming into a category that's stagnant and trying to be a challenger.
Sure.
So,
but it's also helped you, right? In some
oh
way,
yes, for sure.
Because you've got these crazy flavors like champagne, and birthday cake.
Totally.
Right?
So
like the contrast was even sharper maybe in some cases.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, wait, I thought there was only peppermint and spearmint.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Or watermelon or something.
Totally. And that is for sure that is the truth. And for certain retailers that we're a little bit fed up with not getting new ideas from the bigs. Yeah. And we're open to trying to shake up the category or put pressure on the category. Some of those did say, you know what? We'll probably sell a couple, packs of birthday cake. Birthday cake is a great one. Birthday cake, when we came out with it, I had retailers that were like, that's wild. It's probably going to do really well for a couple weeks and then crash, just the novelty of it. We'll give you a try. And at the time I was so desperate. I was remaking the business. After chapter 1, chapter 2 was, okay, I'm going to kill every product category and I'm just going to focus on candy, chewing gum. And I'm going to move the giving story to the back of the package and make it about what you touched on with mission. Like, we're going to be about a really great product first and foremost and get you compelled to try us based off of that. And then if you look on the back for more information and you're endeared to the brand, great. So at the time I was like, I got to come out with some wacky stuff that no one's doing. Like, the ship is sinking. I'm just going to throw anything I can. Yeah. And birthday cake shocked me and it shocked the retailers because it became the number one selling gum at Target. Yeah. And it was like, we're all sitting here going, what is going on? And that's everyone's awesome. Going, and
share a little bit like how big a deal that is. Because number one selling gum at Target, like what was the previous number one selling gum and how long it had been there?
Oh yeah,
since day one.
Yeah, like a Wrigley Extra, spearmint, which is like, as like Coca-Cola Classic as it gets for the gum category. Yeah. Like the juicy fruits and stuff like that are good, but they're not the same. Breath has definitely taken over the category. But yeah, or an Icebreaker, a Trident, these legacy brands, that had been around forever, for a flavor like birthday cake to usurp that. It's amazing. It was like, that's crazy. Yeah. But that we got, this is a good example, and this is for other people listening. Like, we rode that wave for like 5 years. But you definitely see even that start, like, trends change so much faster today. Don't get me wrong, you still need some core flavors and core products. But even that, we've seen a little bit of some dips and, changes. And so we're like, okay, what are we going to do to fix that, and try something else, take another risk.
It's incredible. Two things you talked about that I want to touch on quick is ego. And, there's a whole book by Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy, which is amazing. But we always talk about at Mission about how I don't need to be right. I just need what's best for the company. And if that requires for me to be wrong, then I need to be okay with that. Right? Because it's like us being in business is not about Peter being right or Nick being right or the team being right. It's about the company making it. Yeah. Right? Like, we don't do anybody any good if we don't survive. And so if I need to be wrong, like, there's no egos here. Yeah. Like, leave those at the door. They don't work here.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. And then there's a whole idea of strong opinions loosely held. And I can't remember what, VC kind of coined that term. But it's like, you can have a strong opinion. You better be ready to fight for it. But you also better be ready and open for you to be completely wrong and for us to change your mind. So come in with this idea like, I've got the best new flavor, but also be ready for someone to tell you, no, that's wrong, and I'll tell you why, and here's the data to support it, and be okay with that. Yeah.
It's a very healthy
You have to
place.
be,
Yes.
right? Because otherwise, it's, one or a couple people can just take the whole thing down.
Yes.
Because they're so infatuated with being right, and they've forgotten what the overall mission or cause of the business is, which is to stay afloat.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Those are two excellent things. And I've battled in my career, and I feel like I'm at a place now where I'm a card-carrying member of both of those things. It didn't happen overnight,
It's hard.
It's getting broken and humbled. That led me to that place,
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a time where, probably the same thing with you, but I know at least with, my team and kind of the core senior team that works on stuff, I'll get to that place where we have definitely made it a thing of like, all right, collectively, where do we think is best for the company? But there are those moments sometimes where they're going to go like, you do have to make the final call, and so you still have to do some of that sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's hard, especially if your batting average is low, like I'd said, confidence. I lost some confidence over the years.
Yeah.
And so, but I think having a team around you that sees you like that, where you're willing to work and not be the one that's right, but we try to do it as a team, I would say. We all try to help each other out in our particular areas. Like I go to advice on the regular, on a sales situation, on a packaging situation. They come, to me on like a supply chain or operations. But then at the end of the day, we all respect each other enough to go, but at the end of the day, this is the domain that we've put you over. So we're asking you to
make a decision.
And we trust you. And a general rule of, if it doesn't work, no one gets to come back and say, well, I wouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah.
Like we're all in.
Sure.
Like if you choose that, it means we back you, and we don't come back and go, yeah, I didn't really think that was the right decision, because that's crappy.
That's crappy.
Totally.
Right? And you've got people in their position because you believe that they're the best for that position. And if you don't, then they shouldn't be there.
No.
If you're not trusting their decisions, then what are you paying them for?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Right? The other thing you talked about, and before we started recording, we talked about Nick's term, the interesting slop, right? And the gum was kind of part of that, right? Birthday cake flavor specifically may be part of that. And just kind of paying attention to and not being married to, which is what you did so beautifully, is like you weren't married to the product.
Yeah.
You were more dedicated to the mission, right?
Yeah.
Right? So this is the company, and this is why you built it. And it could be any number of avenues, right?
Right.
Could have been coffee, could have been toilet paper, could have been gum, right? Could be something else, XYZ. You're not married to that, right? And so like what we talk about is like we started as a meat snack company, and we've got, a family of brands that we're rolling out. And if at some point it doesn't make sense for us to do meat snacks anymore, then we don't do it anymore. Right? Because there's other things that we can do.
Yeah.
And there's other things that we're doing.
Yes.
And so, Richard Branson, I remember talking about when they shut Virgin Megastore down. I mean, I know you remember even walking in them.
Oh, yeah.
You were massive.
Totally.
Busy and like insane amount of products, and you go listening stations. Like,
yes.
If you're, 10 years younger than us, you probably don't even know what the hell we're talking about. But, or even wonder why people would go into a store to listen to music.
Totally.
Like that's completely foreign now, right?
Yeah, Goody music too. There were several.
Right, it's crazy, but they're all gone. And I remember him talking about it, and he said it so perfectly. He said it was good while it lasted. Right? It worked for a while, and it made a ton of money, and it was a huge success. There's stores everywhere. And then at a point, it just didn't make sense anymore.
The market evolved.
But you could say, I'm going to hold on tight, and I'm going to make it work because it used to work, and you want to like maintain that whole, legacy. Or you could say it was good while it lasted.
Absolutely.
This got us from A to B, and now that's not going to work anymore. We're going to kill that. And we're going to get something to get us from B to C, and that's just how it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That was one vehicle. We're getting out of that vehicle. We're getting into another one.
Yes. Totally. There is the only thing that I would add to that is, because I agree 100%. The only thing that I would add to it is at times where that I've not put that through enough of a stress test is when I've not looked at it through the lens of, is there anything that we could do differently with it now and reimagine that particular product?
Sure.
And with a little bit more effort that we think it could have legs to give it a little bit more time before we completely let it go.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, back to that shiny object thing, stuff starts to happen and I get afraid. And so then I start going, it must be the end.
Yeah.
And I need to go over to here. And I think you always have like a contingency plan. But I think some of my biggest mistakes, this is me, have been not putting that effort back into what isn't working and why before, but absolutely holding loosely to it and being ready to evolve. We're doing that now. Like, again, like we've got the category is shifting, and as we see low sugar coming out of everything. So sugar was in everything. Candy was always sugar, right? Candy was always sugar. But then candy became a cheat ingredient in so many other mass food producers, from bread to chips to snacks. And so then with people becoming more aware of that creeping into their products, you're seeing like reduced sugar yogurt and reduced sugar, bread and all these things. And so again, candy was always something we knew it was always
you would
sugar.
never check because you're like, oh, it's sugar.
It's sugar.
Yeah.
But we're even seeing the growth of, hey, I want reduced sugar candy, right? So we can either choose to be like, no, candy's always been candy. Candy's always been candy, bless you.
Thank you.
Or we can go, is there something, here? Like if we're going to be around and we're going to be able to keep doing this. And so we've been working for the last couple of years on Skunk Works. And all right, can we make something that we feel like is really special and really serves the category well, but does what that does, and be ready. And so we'll finally roll that out next month, and we'll see where it goes. But I remember when I worked for my family's pet food company, we were just starting out. I just started the pet food brand, and we were very much a challenger brand. And there was another brand that was king at the time. And they had really, in the whole natural pet food space, had grown. Well, one of their leading grain, like protein was important to be first when you were a natural pet food, and then your variety of grains. Wheat was one of their grains, like very common at the time. And they had built a really big business. And all of a sudden you started to hear in the marketplace like, hey, wheat's not good for dogs, allergens, those kind of things. And so the little challenger brands started doing things like brown rice and oats and taking wheat out. And I'll never forget, the man who led this company was a massive PhD scientist, and he was so passionate about being right that he would go on the road and do these lectures at big pet stores and big groups and basically tell everyone why they were wrong about wheat. And there was no scientific data to back up wheat and dogs.
Doesn't matter.
Didn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
It didn't matter. The market had already...
Yeah.
And you watched, literally, Peter, that brand go from number one to just, in the 5 years that followed,
tank.
It was not even relevant. It just gone. And you watched these emerging guys that adapted to the market and the trend where it was going completely come up. So that one, I always like dog tag the page in the book, dog ear, like, because I'll be like, I don't want to be that, So that goes in line with what you're saying, like the Richard Branson thing of like, of being able to adapt.
Yeah, you got to get the people what they want, right? And if you've seen this question come up over and over and over again, it's the market telling you what they want, right?
Yeah.
It's doing the research for you.
It is. It is.
Right? The research is coming to you and it's free.
It is. The world is your classroom. I say that every day. Like, this isn't against college, this isn't against anything, but like literally you can be picking up lessons if you're looking nonstop all day long.
Yeah.
Like that.
Totally. Totally, man. And the thing is like further your point a little bit on persevering, and this is like really to me one of the most difficult parts of being a founder is you don't want to look back and be like, oh, I persevered too long. And you don't want to look back and be like, oh, I gave up too soon, or you're about to turn the corner. And you know what? You just never know. And so you kind of got to go off of intuition, do some some introspection, and be like, am I being lazy here? And am I giving up because I don't want to do the hard work and like reinvent this XYZ product and brand? Or is it truly like run its course?
I can relate to that. I've said this to you before. It's like when we first met, you were exclusively an online, brand, Amazon, and we were all brick and mortar. And here we are, like 4 years later, and brick and mortar is really like not news shocker. I mean, newsflash, it's challenged. I know that's breaking news for everybody. But, the Amazon just came out with results yesterday. Absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, they did.
Killed holiday.
Yeah, Bezos made my buddy texted me today. He's like, I think Bezos made $10 billion yesterday.
He did.
Yeah.
And and we would always I would just be like, well, the product categories we're in lend themselves to being more brick and mortar impulse type purchases. And that was a part of that. But I've told you, offline, and I've just been like, I'm at that place of I have to learn. I feel like the empty nester that's like going back to college. and that awkward thing of like that pain point that you talked about of going, are you tired? Are you lazy? And I'm like, we have to we have to figure it out.
Yep.
Like if we want to be here, God willing, other things in 5 years or a year, we have to figure out online.
Yeah.
And so that's a perfect example where I let that one probably ride a little bit too long.
Yeah.
And now
because it seems daunting.
It seems daunting. And now here you are, and we had, Target and all these kind of places where on paper it might be like, wow, that's really, great. And here you are 4 years later, and you definitely are in an incredible spot, even in a lot of places, a better spot, because that's where everybody is at. And, you've got product that works online, and you're supporting certain lifestyles and keto and low carb. And so it's like, that's a destination for that type of shopper. And if you want to build a niche brand, you want to come into a category, that's how you have to fish.
Yeah.
And that's a kudos to you.
Thank you. And it's also one of these things where there's luck and timing, right?
Sure.
And also same thing for me, which probably some laziness just happened to be in my favor. I just knew e-commerce. Like that was my thing, and it just happened to all kind of work together, But it's funny you say it, like the laziness piece is so fascinating to me. And I think that, for the listener, something to pay attention to. This it came up again a couple days ago. There was an aspect of our business where I'm like, man, we've neglected it. Damn, I don't want to learn that.
I know.
And I don't want to learn it, and I kind of just want to like make it go away. I'd probably hire an agency. They can do it, Took me about 48 hours to snap out of it and be like, no, just like everything else, we got to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some painful time where it's like, I got to get in the weeds on this in order for me to understand enough to then hire appropriately, to know the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
It does.
Like I just don't want to learn it,
Because if there might be even a part, at least for me, that, and I don't know for you, but there's a part that feels like I shouldn't have to be here at this point. I should have already been at a place where,
You mean like you should have done it 3 years ago?
Should have done it 3 years ago, or sometimes I'll be like, the business was strong enough that I already have someone that knows that has.
Oh, just to hand it off to.
Yeah. Or that competency is there, and
sure.
So like, sometimes I'll have these stupid games I'll play with myself. Like if I'm setting up a trade show booth and I have a friend who's got a brand and he's got like 6 other people setting up their booth, and he didn't even set up their booth. And I'm like, I'm still setting up my booth. Like, did I not get farther along? Like
Yeah.
Little things like that.
Yeah.
And it's a dumb
stupid
thing. But it's like you said, it's like, what is that says I don't want to learn that?
Yeah, I don't know what it means. I think there's some ego there. Like we touched on that earlier.
And insecurity.
Insecurities, you're comparing. It's like, Matthew, who I just recorded with recently, Manos, we were talking about how in our culture, you meet somebody at some sort of, dinner or something like that, or mixer, and inevitably the first couple of questions is like, oh, so what size is your team? And we were talking about how, like, if you can get caught in that trap, and then it can influence your decisions. You can be making decisions that don't make any sense, like a hire when you didn't really need to hire,
True,
moving into a larger office when you didn't really need one. And I told him, and also I want to talk about how the pluses or the minuses with, certain characteristics. But for me, it's never bothered me. Like, I wear it as a badge of honor. I'm like, no, we're a small team. My office is in my bedroom. Like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, I don't need your approval to know that we're doing the right thing.
That's really good.
Because I'm living my life. You're not living my life.
Yeah.
And if I go to hire a couple people because I want to compare myself to you, you don't pay for that, and I got to pay for it.
That's very healthy.
And so it's like, I don't really care about you. You know what I mean? And not in a mean way, but it's more so like what you think has no relevance. Zero, nothing. It absolutely doesn't matter, because you know what? On Monday, I got to deal with it, not you. So what do I care what you think about how big my team is? But as far as the pluses or the minuses, and we talked about like personalities earlier, and about, you and I were, ideators, and we caused some trouble in the business. The pluses are always the minuses, right? And so it's like, because we're like that, we need guardrails. We need people to say, hey, dude, pump the brakes. But if you had a bunch of people that are pumping the brakes all day, nothing would get done. And so, like, their pluses or their minuses also, right?
Yes.
And so you need, like, those things.
You do.
But just back to, like, that
when we got this office, I'll never forget, next door was vacant as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to sound silly, but they had a sink, and they had running water in there, and, they had, like, a little setup, like, you had a little kitchenette. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, and this one didn't.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, we're going to grow. We probably need to go ahead and lease that too. And then we'll have the kitchenette, and we'll have room to grow, this whole thing. And Tristan, our COO, has been with me for several years. He's just like, I don't know, man, and you have to have those people in your life that can say that. And he just like, I don't know, like, I don't know if you want to just have that extra $3,000 a month,
mm-hmm.
Or whatever it was, 25, something like that. And he was just like, it's just, I'd put that towards something else in the business. And I remember at the time just being frustrated,
You're like, who are you to question me?
Yeah. And I mean, just being like, it's not that much money.
Yeah.
And like, we need a good office space, and we are going to grow.
Yeah.
And it's 5 years later, we're in the same space, mm-hmm. and our team is more remote in other locations, and we don't, like, most of my team is in San Diego County.
Okay. So
if I was to even expand,
it'd be down there.
I would add a space down there. So I'm so thankful that there was someone to go,
yeah,
hey man, this is, and also my thing with my team is I'll say, is this a blind spot for me?
Mm-hmm. And I like that.
And I'll just say, I want to be like, I think it's this, but is this a blind spot? And it's mm-hmm. like, you have permission to, and everyone's respectful. Like, they would go, if you want to sign the lease, or you want to do that kind of thing, you can,
sure.
You can do it. But those kind of times where I've been super thankful for those people to be able to check you.
It's huge, man. And the thing is, you need to be ready to make your argument.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want to move in there and you think that that's going to have a good return on investment for you, you should be able to pencil that out.
That's exactly right.
Right? And if you can't, then it's maybe more of an emotional decision.
Exactly. And it is like deposits and withdrawals, because like 3 years after we'd been in this space, it was very, very, very dated. And not that it's like so amazing now, but I wanted to give it a facelift, put in some fresh floors, paint it, some windows, stuff like that. And so then when I did that, it was like, look, let's just make this place. We didn't do lease before. We didn't expand, but let's make this spot a little bit better for our team. That's a little bit more, current. And so then it was like, all right, like I'll yield on that, right? Like there's those kinds of back and forth on teams to go, I see how you were disciplined and we didn't do the extra office when we didn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a total like sunk cost. We don't get anything back from floors. It doesn't really matter to me as much as it matters to you, but that's one that I'm not going to,
sure,
on the hill for.
Yeah.
This is nothing. I love retail. I'm not bagging retail.
Yeah.
I just mean, and this is why it's important for anyone listening, most people that I meet that have any aspirations of a product in consumer space, they are like, I want to get into Target. I want to get into Whole Foods. I want to get into Walmart, whatever, that kind of a thing. And they think that by getting those things, then your brand, has made it. And so what I'm trying to tell and say what you did, which was really smart, and what we're trying to do now is, it's not that those places, they're still titans of industry.
Yeah,
and
they're moving serious volume.
Serious volume.
Yeah.
The problem is that you're going up in categories against major CPG companies. So my competition is Hershey's, Mars Wrigley, and Mondelez. All companies that are double-digit billion-dollar entities.
Yeah.
There's another one called Perfetti that's multi-$100 million, but they would be considered the closest to us, and we're not. And those guys are putting tremendous amount of money and resources into, their partnerships with those big retailers. And so you're always going to be in a potentially compromised spot because those guys represent a big pie. In the lobbying world, they represent a lot. When you build online, Amazon, your own direct, the stickiness of that customer comes back. Like you put up on Amazon, there's not a category manager that goes, you know what, I just moved on the desk and I think Hershey could serve this better. I'm going to delete you. Mm-hmm. They can't do that.
Right. It's less vulnerable.
It's less vulnerable. And it has its challenges. Yeah. But you can put it up there and then online. Or if I'm looking for keto snacks or if I'm looking for organic, kids candy, the web allows you to get to that for storefront, and I can support that. So I just encourage young entrepreneurs, old entrepreneurs alike, build up that online place because you can build up that consistent revenue and that tribe and that customer, and then let the retail complement that. But a lot of times retail, if you don't move crazy units through there, it's like the entertainment industry. You're only as good as the last song that you charted. So even with like several number one hits, i.e. number one performing gums at Target, 3 buyers later, it's like, well, what did you do this last quarter? You're down. Well, yeah, but a year ago we were this and we've been great. Give us a chance. I'm sorry, you're out. And that's the thing of the reality that I want people to hear is like, it's, and it's nothing against it. They've got pressure to hit their numbers and the whole thing. But that's why I would just say, build what you can, online. And I know you need sometimes larger purchase orders to make minimums work at factories, but look for, other retailers that can kind of build up to that number.
Yeah. And it can be a both and, right? Just like work on both of them at the same time.
Yes.
And the great thing about going direct to consumer is that it could maybe potentially bankroll some of your other endeavors, right? You can allow it to help you finance some other things that you want to get done. But yeah, I think both and. And the thing also that's great about direct consumer is that you get a tighter feedback loop. So you can find out what's working, why the stuff's working, that's working, why what's not working is not working. You can get some of that feedback from the customers a little bit more quickly.
Totally.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. We have unless someone comes back to us like, I bought this at Target and I didn't like it, because
it's hard to know.
It's hard to know.
Yeah. All right, so let's switch gears to the Reaper Round. This is where our guest answers some rapid-fire questions while they attempt to eat all of the Carolina Reaper jerky.
No, I'm not
Tyler,
eating all of it.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
So he just learned about 5 minutes before the interview that this was even part of the show.
I think it's a terrible idea.
So I'm going to let you open it. You can smell it. Don't touch your face. Don't touch your face.
I feel like you should sign a waiver. Man.
It's delicious, though, which
I'm
is
sure
good.
it is. All right. So do I just like...
You can take a bite, and then I'm going to ask you your first question. I don't know why this is funny for me already.
Because you've seen other episodes. You know.
All right. So, favorite book. This could be something you've read in the last year, a classic for you. Like, what comes to mind when somebody asks you about that? It could be business, personal.
Shoe Dog.
I've never even heard of that.
Phil Knight's story of Nike.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely devoured it.
Yeah?
Oh, I loved.
What was good about it?
You know, like so many things in life. Wow. Yeah, that is like a fool. I'm going to take a second bite. It was excellent jerky.
Yeah.
Really good jerky.
Thank you.
You know, so often you see a brand like Nike and like anything, you're just like, oh, man, they're massive. They made it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just think they've always been.
Yeah.
And when you hear the stories and the failures and the setbacks and how things, it humanizes and it makes it on your level.
Sure.
And it makes you go, wow, like Phil Knight was like, how was he going to make it? The bank called his line of credit.
Wow.
The people were, his shoes were coming unglued when he launched, these contracts, just those things that like, I absolutely loved it from a perspective of just making you make a big brand feel small. And like we all, just like everybody has to go through school and the challenges of being, liking someone, being bullied, failing a test, like all those things, you can bring up those in conversations and everyone's like, yeah, I can relate to that. It was hard. 7th grade was awful. Hearing those stories of major companies or brands that have done it and be able to be like, they had to put on their pants the same way.
That's right.
They had the same, it was inspiring.
Yeah.
And it was, I loved it. It's an incredible, I had friends that told me for years, they would be like, you need to try it out. And I'd be like,
well, the thing is, too, for stuff like that, what helps me is like relating to the fact that it's just always hard. You know what I mean? It's like they don't arrive and then it's like, oh, we're just skating and we're just selling product and it's no big deal. It's like every day is great. It's a party. There's still problems. It's still like there's still production run issues. Don't you think like sometimes when you're small? I think you actually it was somebody else I was talking to that helped me with this recently. I felt like, man, if we just had our own plant or if we just had, this food scientist on staff, we didn't have to contract with them, or if we just had this, like the big companies do, who would have these issues. And then you find out, like, no, man, they've got 12 of them on staff and they still can't figure the crap out. It's just knowing that they are also suffering. I mean, maybe this sounds weird. It's like, oh no, that doesn't, it doesn't fix it.
Oh, oh man.
You're right.
Man.
You got a bad piece.
Got it. It's back there. It's doing damage. My tonsils, I lost them. They're gone.
But that's to me the magic of books is that. It's the relatability and understanding like, no, this is part of it, right?
Oh yeah. And then there was this one part, I highly recommend it, but there's this one part that you just wrote, you're reminded about this kind of stuff. Like he's got a second home in Palm Springs. And so they spend the winters down there. And he had been to a movie and he comes out and in the lobby is Bill Gates and Warren Buffett.
Crazy.
Right. So the three of them in this lobby.
Yeah.
And here is, Phil Knight, founder, creator of Nike, worth billions of dollars. And he did not even feel like they might even really remember him. Like he had to kind of jog their memory.
Oh, you know me. I'm like, the Nike
hey,
guy.
We met, whatever.
Jeez.
And then feeling like the envy a little bit of like, well, they're worth like 50 and 60 billion dollars, and I'm, worth $3 billion or whatever it was. And just hearing that and being like, it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
Like there's, and so if you could take lessons from that and be like, okay, I want to be able to do that where I'm at now, because if you ever got to that place, which I'm not saying, get to Phil Knight's place, but to not think that you're just that's all of a sudden gonna be how you do things when you get that way. You have to start, I'm content right now.
Yeah. You need to be that
awesome.
now.
Because it's not going to just, once you're like, well, when I get $1 billion, I'll be content. When I get $100 million, I'll be content. So that was a really, a good reminder. And I appreciate him being as vulnerable and sharing that.
Right. The truth is too, that's crazy. I try to remember. There are people that are in a position 3 tiers lower than you, right? And I say lower, it could be business success, financial, whatever lower is. That's looking to that aspect of your life and being like, if I could only get there where Tyler's at, I'd be great. And remembering that and be like, oh, they want to arrive here. And I'm complaining about here because I want to be here. And the person that's there, it just doesn't stop, like you said.
It's so the truth, Peter.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't.
And so you got to just be here.
Yes.
Right? Enjoy the now. This is it, right?
Yes.
You can still strive, but also be grateful, right?
Yes.
I don't think I've stuck on this number one question this long. And you're doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any quotes you live by?
There is a...
The Reaper's going back in the bag, folks.
I'm done. There's a couple that are like, in the subconscious, like it's never as bad as you think it is. And it's never as great as you think it is. So if I've gotten this, commitment from a particular customer, or we had a good sales week, trying to be measured and balanced enough to go, that was okay, that's cool. I'm thankful for it. But I'm not gonna like, I can't let this rule my emotions that, we're gonna be okay. Or I'm gonna go make another big major business decision and double down on something because, of that. And then when we have a tough week, bad sales, or a customer decides to delete one of our SKUs, or we didn't get picked, it's not going to be the end of the business or the brand. That has taken a long time.
That's hard
to do. And I would say that it's still, depending on the day or the week, I do better than others, but I really try to do that. And it starts in the morning, where I try to start the morning with, back to my faith, I try to start the morning, with just let my identity not be found in how I'm able to win today or lose. And that there's more to this than just me. Like a lot of times I'll treat my email, or I've gotten addicted to my email like a fortune cookie. And so, depending on when I open it up in the morning, if I've got good news or if I've got bad news, where that starts to shift me in how I make decisions in the day, lead. And so trying to be like, I want to do my best. I want to work hard, but I don't want to find my identity in this. So that would be that, which I don't think like that's someone you could tie it back to where that came from. But that
I dig it.
That, and then spiritually, just like, I don't want to find my identity in this.
Yeah, I dig it, man. And I think that it's powerful because someone I talked to on a previous podcast, he talked about leveling out the peaks and the valleys.
That's what.
That's like, that is my ultimate goal too, right? And it's like, if you have all of these emotional swings where you're getting like super excited about prospects or a PO or new product line or something, you're like setting yourself up for major disappointment later, right? And so it's difficult because you want to be appreciative and you want to get excited. It's good for the team.
Absolutely.
You know, but it's like you don't want to get too excited. And a speaker I heard a long time ago, I always quote him. I've forgotten his name now, actually. I think he passed away. But he talked about how he had battered entrepreneur syndrome. And he's like, I just always walked around like my hands over my nuts, ready to get kicked. And so when somebody would bring me good news, I would be like, oh, yeah, okay. And they would think that was something wrong with me because he's like, I wouldn't get excited. He's like, because I knew that good news was followed by bad, always.
I really can relate to that.
Because he's like, I can't get excited. He's like, oh, yeah, good. Mm-hmm. And the team would be like, what's wrong with you, man? He's like, oh, no, nothing. He's like, I was just waiting. And so, like, you don't want to do that either. But at the same time, it's like, if you can kind of temper your emotions a little bit, you know, and not let either one of those sway you in a direction that you don't want to go, then you can handle them both pretty well.
Yes.
And you can think clearly and you can make the right decisions, you know.
Agreed.
I don't know how many times where I've gotten super excited because I thought I had a home run hit on something or found some sort of miracle tweak. And then a couple of days later, I'm like, oh no, I read the data wrong. And it's like so depressing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, dude, if you would have just like chilled out and been like, nope, I got 1 day's worth of data. Let's let it roll for like 3 or 4 more days and just see what happens, right? Then I would have come back and been like, oh no, I read it wrong. And that would have been it.
Bingo.
And I would have rather not had the high because then I could have skipped the low.
Totally.
So just like a tip for the audience, man. Best under $100 purchase you've made that's most impacted your life.
Oh man, these are cool questions. I got these house shoes.
House
shoes.
Okay.
Called Girl-Ups.
Wait. So
G-E-R-L-U-P-S.
you have house shoes, so it's already like making you sound like a dad.
Yeah.
And then they're called Girl-Ups.
Yeah, I think that's what they're called.
All right.
I hope I've completely botched the brand name, because if not, it definitely doesn't. And I get made fun of by family members when I wear them because they're definitely unique looking.
Okay.
But they are this awesome, like wool made slipper from like Scandinavia that has like a vulcanized rubber bottom, so you have the flexibility to, you know, run and errand outside of the house, you know, or just
in your Girl-Ups.
In my Girl-Ups. And I love like having my feet warm. Yeah. And so I'm a big house shoe. Like I have multiple pairs of house shoes.
So they're comfortable and they're warm.
They're comfortable and they're warm.
Okay.
I highly recommend them.
Okay. I'll check them out. As much as I make fun of you, I'll look them up.
You're not going to check them out.
There's a Girl-Up.
They look like elf.
Are they pink?
Like elf shoes.
Are they pink too or no? No. They look like elf shoes.
They look like elf shoes. I had a family member that said, I hope you don't wear those outside of the house.
All right. 2 quick questions here. Final questions. 1, what should I have asked you, but I didn't?
Glur-Ups.
Glur-Ups.
Glur-Ups. G-L-E-R-U-P-S.
Okay, that's better. That's better.
A Scandinavian name.
Glur-Up. Okay.
What should you have asked me that didn't ask me? Why do you keep doing what you're doing? Because we were at a factory run this week, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and we're at.
All good factories are in the middle of nowhere,
yeah,
aren't they?
Totally. And it's in the middle of nowhere, and I'm with a couple of our team members, and there's only like one restaurant, you know, in town, and so we'd eat there.
It's Mexican or pizza.
So we're eating there, and it feels a little Twilight Zone-ish, and I just said to, you know, my team that was there, I was just like, do you ever have those moments where you just kind of ask yourself, like, how did I end up here, you know, kind of thing? And we all just laughed because it was like, yeah, like nobody, I mean, I didn't at least, you know, be in college or whatever and be like, when you grow up and you're in your early 40s, you're going to be in a very rural town trying to figure out how to make gummy bears, you know, like right. In a very strange environment. And just, you know, that did not
That wasn't on your radar?
That wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
And that's not what I would say I define success.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will tell you is, and the reason, because I've had to ask myself, because I could make a lot more money not doing this. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that like I'm some big shot. I just mean there's plenty of other things, opportunities I've had that, at some point I've been like, okay, you're a weirdo that you keep, doing this and it causes you as much, pain. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that I think it's because it's your passion. And I love the adventure and the strangeness of that my life could end up at a place that's so bizarre and random. And I have that in my pocket. Yeah. I mean, for me, I've got hundreds of stories and experiences like that. And it's kept life so interesting and, and moving things around. And for my personality, that's been amazing. If I would have been like, nothing against, like, if carrying the mail that's your jam and mm-hmm. like you love it, or teaching second grade class at this school for 20 years, that like once you figure that out, do it. Mm-hmm. Because now if I could go do the other things and make more money or do that, they wouldn't be true to what I'm made to do. And so I would say that was one of those ones this week where I was like, okay, I was so tired and, home, but it felt so good to be like, all right, I'm excited about where we're going. Yeah. I think there's this misnomer that following your passion equals happiness, and that bluebirds are on your shoulder and that everything's just, great. Mm-hmm. Following your passion does not mean that you're not going to have setbacks and it's going to be hard and all of those other things that go with that. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times this thing of like, man, if then you'd be hitting your stride. I would think you feel alive even in the weird places of it, right?
Yeah, and that's what following your purpose is like, right? I mean, like purpose doesn't always equal happiness. It can, but even if it does, it's not 100% of the time, right? But it will carry you through those bad times, right?
Yes.
It's when you're not aligned with your purpose and you go through a hard time that it's most difficult.
The combo.
Because then you're like, what the heck am I doing this for? I don't even like it,
Right.
I don't even want to be here. Like, this is not what I was meant to be doing anyways,
yes.
I think that's what makes it even more difficult. But it is what carries you through those times. You're sitting in a small town. You're like, what the heck am I doing here? You're like, oh, I'm doing it because of this. And it's part of that, right?
Totally.
And I actually, I frequently think the same thing where I'm like, man, what am I doing with my life?
Totally.
Like you're at some random hotel in some place.
Yes.
You're like, why the hell am I sleeping here today?
Yes.
I could have been home.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But it's good to have you question it, because then you're like, you got to sit with it for a little bit. You're like, man, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yes.
Right?
Totally.
Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Yes, it is what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't like doing this crap that I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
As far as being in this random town, but it's part of it. It's a piece of the puzzle, and it's necessary. And I also think too, man, it's like the hard things, as much as you when you go through them, you don't like them. I still, at the same time, I'm like, I'm glad this is hard, because there's a higher barrier to entry for somebody, right? Like you've been working on a project for 2 years. Now I'm 2 years ahead of everybody else. Like you want to figure it out, I got a lead on you, man.
Yeah.
Like you got to get through all that
to
get here. I'm already here.
Yeah.
And I like it that it's hard.
Yeah.
When it's easy, I'm like, ugh,
It's true.
If that was that easy for me, that means somebody else could do it.
It's a very good point. It feels different in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it means more to you.
And it means more to you.
Like I came in even late, my family was asleep last night, but it was like my middle daughter was still studying, and I was like, like aside from like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to see you, I was like, you gotta try the candy. Like I got it ready for you, like I was so excited to show them. And like, I think to myself, like, they've got to be so weird. Like sometimes like, so my dad comes home with, like another product for us to try or whatever.
Yeah.
But, that part of it, it's like, okay, I knew it was my passion, and I knew I loved it, and it had been worth even all the hard things the last 2 years of trying to figure it out. When just absolutely destroyed, tired, I walked through the door with, I can't wait for my family to try this.
Yeah, right. It's a good indicator.
Yeah.
All right, final question. As I ask every guest, what's your favorite Mission Meats flavor?
Oh man, that is. I told you before I don't want to eat
Spicy.
the spicy, and I like spicy.
Mm-hmm.
And I love turkey, like and I love like garlics and peppers and the cracked pepper.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at how much I liked that.
The Reaper.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But it would have to be like
a tiny little
piece. I have to know my limits because I could probably eat this whole bag in the next hour. But I know that I would
pay for it.
Yes. But that is a phenomenal product.
Thank you, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, thanks for having me, man.
Thanks.
If people want to keep tabs on what you're working on, what's the best way?
I would say, it's always the token thing, but, Instagram's probably the place where we keep the most, of what's going on with the brand.
Okay. Just Project 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether it's, product releases or, promotions, new retailers, new flavors.
Okay.
That'd be the best place.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Tyler, it's been a pleasure.
All right.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. And I just want to challenge you to really sit and question the path that you're on. Think about whether you're living in your purpose, leaning into your purpose, on the path to your purpose or not, and why not. If you are, great. How can you continue to be down that path and maybe even accelerate your progress? And if you're not, why not? And what would it take to get there? What are the steps that you would need to take in order to get on that path to purpose, leaning into that, living through it, shedding some of the responsibilities that you can shed if you're an employee or solopreneur or entrepreneur, founder, CEO, whatever. Just really think about that. Take some time over the next week or so and start to journal and write down some of the things that you need to be doing in order to be on that path. Okay? And if you do and you make some of those changes, reach out to me. Hit me up, peter@missionmeats.co. Tell me about it or DM us on Instagram. Tell us your story. Let us know how you're living out your mission. We'd love to feature you on the show. And whether that's just a mention or shout out or we hop on a Zoom call and record you a little bit and share your story. I'd love to do any of those things. If you have some Q&A that you want to send in regards to where you're stuck and ways for you to proceed, email me. I can even maybe even loop in Joe or at least ask him and get some Q&A started there. So thanks again for listening. We're honored to share this time with you, and we don't take it lightly. And if there's anything that you'd like for us to be doing differently, to add, subtract from the show, reach out to us. And if you're not subscribing and you want to subscribe, I wouldn't mind it. A review? Let's do that perhaps. Until next time, thanks for listening. Now get out there and live your mission.